There was a time, not so long ago, when the internet felt like a digital Wild West, a sprawling frontier of unfiltered ideas and warring tribes. And in this landscape, there were two kingdoms, two opposing empires built on fundamentally different philosophies. On one side, you had 4chan, the anonymous, chaotic cesspool of creativity and toxicity, a place where everything was a joke, especially the things that weren't. And on the other, you had Tumblr, the vibrant, hypervisual world of fandoms, social justice, and curated personal identity. These two platforms were like oil and water, fire and ice. And they were destined to collide in a spectacular, messy, and frankly, ridiculous fashion. Today, we re-dissecting one of the most infamous of those collisions, the great battle of 4chan versus Tumblr. First, to understand the war, you have to understand the soldiers. 4chan, specifically its per-B or random board, operated on a principle of pure, unadulterated anonymity. No profiles, no history, no consequences. This environment fostered a culture that was deeply cynical, nihilistic, and hostile to anything it perceived as overly earnest or special. They were the Internet's ID, a collective force that found humor in disruption for its own sake. Their targets were often anything and everything, but they held a special kind of disdain for what they saw as the performative and sensitive nature of other social media sites. Meanwhile, Tumblr was the exact opposite. It was a platform built around the self. Your blog was your castle, decorated with aesthetics you liked, filled with content you identified with, and followed by people who shared your specific niche interests. It became a haven for artistic expression, LGBTQ communities, and burgeoning social justice movements. For its users, Tumblr was a carefully constructed safe space, a digital bedroom where you could be your truest self. But to the anons of 4chan, this curated world of trigger, warnings, and personal pronouns was a fortress of everything they despised. It was, in their eyes, a target-rich environment. The animosity festered for years, with minor skirmishes and drive-by trolling incidents, but eventually Zdenizanov beat vervasion. Someone, lost to the ephemerality of the board, proposed a coordinated raid, an event to tear a hole in the fabric of Tumblr's reality. The idea spread like wildfire. This was not just about posting offensive images. It was a psychological operation. The plan was meticulously, if crudely, laid out. It was given a name, often referred to as Operation Overlord, a ridiculously self-important title for what was essentially a digital prank war. Then the attack began. On the chosen day, 4chan users descended upon Tumblr en masse. They created thousands of throwaway blogs and began a coordinated campaign of spam and shock content. The goal was pure chaos. They flooded popular tags, the arteries of Tumblr's circulatory system, with gore, pornography, and bizarre, nonsensical memes. But the most insidious part of the raid was the subtler tactics. They would post seemingly innocent content, like pictures of cute animals, but then rapidly edit the post to include horrific imagery, tricking people into reblogging it to their own followers. This weaponized Tumblr's own mechanics against its users. They also spammed posts with deliberately triggering content, specifically targeting the communities that used the platform as a refuge. It was a cruel and calculated assault on the very idea of a safe space. As a result, Tumblr was thrown into utter pandemonium. For the average user, their dashboard, normally a comforting stream of art and fandom content, had become a minefield of digital viscera. Everyone was in a panic. Posts flew around warning people what was happening, telling them to log off, to not click anything, to stay away from the popular tags. There was a desperate attempt to fight back, with users creating block lists and reporting the spam blogs as fast as they could. But for every account that was terminated, 10 more seemed to pop up. It felt like trying to bail out the ocean with a thimble. Tumblr staff were slow to react, and for a few crucial hours, it seemed like the trolls had won. The community felt violated, its walls breached, and its peace shattered. However, the chaos eventually subsided. The Anons of 4chan, having the attention span of a gnat, grew bored and moved on to their next fleeting obsession. The mess was cleaned up, the spam blogs were deleted, and a tense, uneasy quiet fell over the platform. So, what was the point of it all? This is where we move from the what to the why. This battle was a perfect microcosm of a fundamental culture war that defined the 2010s Internet. It was a clash between the politics of identity and the politics of anonymity. 4chan's philosophy was that identity was a weakness. To them, the freedom of being an anonymous poster was the ultimate form of expression, allowing for brutal honesty without social consequence. They saw Tumblr's focus on personal identity, pronouns, and social justice labels as a form of weakness and self-importance that deserved to be mocked and torn down. Consequently, their attack was designed not just to offend, but to invalidate the very core of Tumblr's culture. They were sending a message: your identity is a joke, and your safe space is an illusion. Tumblr's users, on the other hand, saw identity as their strength. Their blogs were extensions of themselves, and their online communities were vital support systems. The raid wasn't just spam. It was a personal attack, a hate crime in digital space. To them, 4chan represented the worst of the Internet, a toxic, hateful mob that hid behind anonymity to hurt people without accountability. The conflict crystallized the divide between two visions for the Internet. One as a lawless free-for-all and the other as a network of curated, moderated communities. In the end, the great battle of 4chan versus Tumblr achieved very little in the grand scheme of things. 4chan didn't destroy Tumblr, and Tumblr didn't reform 4chan, but the event left a scar. It hardened the resolve of both sides, further entrenching them in their respective ideologies. For Tumblr, it led to a greater emphasis on block, features, and community moderation, a doubling down on the safe space concept. For the broader Internet, it was a grim showcase of how easily online mobs could be mobilized to harass and disrupt. These tactics would later be refined and used in much larger, more malicious campaigns, from Gamergate to coordinated political disinformation. The battle was a messy, juvenile, and ultimately pointless conflict. It was a war fought with shocking images and offensive text, a testament to how much time people have on their hands. But it was also a defining moment in Internet culture. It drew the battle lines for a decade of online conflict, exposing the deep philosophical rift that runs through our digital world. Years ago, these platforms felt like the entire internet, but today they are just relics of a certain era. These stories, however, are the digital fossils that show us how we got to where we are now. And documenting these moments is a crucial part of understanding the strange, chaotic world we've built online. If you appreciate these kinds of deep dives into internet history, sticking around the channel is the best way to support them.